Okay. So in yesterday's session, basically it was a demo session, right? So in the demo session, we discussed about what is performance testing, LoadRunner architecture, simple record and replay using a component called user. And then we discussed about the course content and also some question answers. Okay. So the basic generic definition that we that I have mentioned is checking the performance of an application, okay, by applying some load. So without load, you cannot call it as a performance testing, right? So there should be some load. Load is generally nothing but the number of users. Okay. So yeah, we have some textbook kind of definitions also, but not important as of now. So in today's session, we will be discussing about the different types of performance testing. I do have slides for these, okay, but I do have slides for all these different types of performance testing. However, just for today, I would like to go through and discuss and write down the points using the notepad itself, so that everyone can understand and remember easily. So before discussing types of performance testing, one important point that we need to understand is performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. So if you see this screen, so I have mentioned performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. What do you mean by speed? Speed is nothing but how fast the application is responding to your request. Okay, basically, yesterday we have seen the response times, right? So, how fast it is taking for the application to load the page. Okay, that kind of speed. Or how fast it is taking for the application to navigate from one page to another page. Okay, that is related to speed. Stability means in, even though the application is running for a longer duration, the performance should not degrade. Okay. So the, the performance should be consistent. The response time should be consistent. Okay. Uh, and the application should be stable. Then scalability. Scalability means the application's ability to handle increasing users without performance degradation. Okay. So all in all, these three keywords, okay, maybe you can just make a note of it, or you can just remember them: speed, stability, and scalability. So performance testing is generally measured using these three key terms. Now when it comes to types of performance testing, these three keywords also correlates with some of these types of performance testing. So the first major type of performance testing that we generally do in any sort of project is nothing but the load test. Okay. And then you have something called stress test, then endurance or soak or duration test, scalability test, and then volume test, failover test. Okay. Or let's say maybe make a spike testing to discuss. So let's say these are the different types of performance testing what we have. It doesn't mean that you need to execute or run all these types of tests in every project. No. Depending on the project, the type of test will be decided. Okay. Either the application team will decide, or they will reach out to us and ask for suggestions on what type of test should be run for the application. So if client is not aware of performance testing and seeking your input on what type of test to run, so always remember that performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. Okay, and these three terms correlates to some of these types of performance testing. We'll see that now. So first type of test is nothing but load test. This is the first major test that we have to run in every project. Almost every project we have to run this test, and this is the first major test. Okay, if this is a successful test, then only it makes sense to go to the next types of testing, performance testing, and run. If this load test is a failure, hopefully we will not go to the next. I mean, mostly we will not go to the next different types of performance testing because load test is very important and crucial. Okay, so as I said, first major type of test in every project. Okay, now using load test to find or to see the speed of the application. That means how fast the pages are loading, how fast application is navigating from one page to another page. Okay, so load test is all about executing to find out the speed of the application, like how fast the application is responding and so on. And for this type of load test, we generally run with some number of users. Like let's say, for example, 500 users. So this will be given by client. Mostly will be given by client. This is given by client or application team. So with how many users you need to run, that will be decided and given by client. Okay. Uh, in the directly or indirectly, client will give you this number. Okay. So we have to find out. Then for how long we will run this test? We will run this test for 1 hour steady state. Okay. We will run this test for 1 hour steady state in most of the projects. So what do you mean by steady state? Steady state is nothing but when all the users, let's say I'm running the test with 10 users or 50 users. If all the users are up and running, and then we'll run it for 1 hour and see the results. So it will look something like this. Okay, ignore if you don't understand it completely because this is just a diagram. Okay, it will be something like this, for example. So here, from this time to this time, this 1 hour will be steady state, or this time duration, whatever the time duration that you're running, 1 hour or more than 1 hour, that will be your steady state. Here, you are increasing the users. Here, you are decreasing the users. Okay. So one important point is not all the users will start execution at the same time. Okay. So slowly users will increase, slowly users will decrease after the test. So in between, whatever the duration that you are running, that duration time we call it as steady state. Okay. So this load test will run for 1 hour steady state at least. So what exactly you will find? What exactly you will find out? Basically, we find response times. We find bottlenecks like high response times, errors, okay, and some other metrics like CPU utilization, memory utilization, okay, etc. We'll see that later. So whenever you run a load test, first thing we will find out is the bottlenecks in terms of response times, high response times, errors or failed transactions, some infrastructure metrics like CPU utilization, memory utilization, etc. Okay, very, very important type of test. If this test itself is a failure, then we cannot run the remaining types of tests, kind of a blocker. Okay. So any questions in this as of now? Did everyone understand why we are running the, why we are running the load test? Load test is to ensure how fast the application is responding by applying some load. So every time you have to understand that applying load is important keyword. So here load is nothing but number of users, which will be provided by client directly or indirectly. And for how long we will run this test? We'll run this test for 1 hour steady state. Okay, what do we exactly find out? We find out the root, bottlenecks. It's like high response times, errors, CPU utilization, memory utilization, etc. Okay, this is the first major type of test. If this is a successful test, then we go for any other type of test. There is no thumb rule. There is no thumb rule that you need to execute only stress test. Okay. So now what do you mean by stress test? So stress test, as the name indicates, okay, as the name indicates, stressing the application or stressing the system to an extent, to some extent, or to an extent where it breaks. Okay. So just increase the volume, increase the user volume, then the load test. So whatever the load test users or volume that you have used, okay, increase that to some extent or to an extent where it breaks. Okay, to some extent or till it breaks or till we find the breaking point. Okay, now I'll tell you one generic example. Let's assume there is a restaurant. Okay, let's assume there is a restaurant. In that restaurant, there are like, let's say, 7 tables. Okay, now there is only one helper taking care of all 7 tables. Okay, in the restaurant. That means taking the order and delivering the food on the table. So that helper is taking care of all 7 tables. Due to increase in demand, the owner decided to increase the number of users from number of tables from 7 to 9. Okay, due to increase in the demand, due to more customers coming in, the owner decided to increase the number of tables from 7 to 9. Then this helper, who was managing 7 tables earlier, is now responsible for 9 tables. Okay, but the helper did not hesitate and took up the task. Okay, managed 9 tables, but there was some performance delay for sure. What kind of performance delay? That means if the time taken to order the food to a particular table is on an average is like 25 minutes, let's say. Now after adding two more tables from 7 to 9. Okay, 1 second. Hey, sorry guys, I was not feeling well today. Okay. So, the helper in the restaurant is now managing 9 tables instead of 7. So, but the delivery time, increased. Earlier, the helper was able to manage to deliver the food in 20 minutes. Now, the helper is taking around 30 to 40 minutes due to increase in the number of tables. Okay. So, and then again there was more demand, and then the owner decided to increase the number of tables. Okay, from 9 to 11. So when the owner decided to increase the number of tables from 9 to 11, then the helper said, no, I cannot perform this task. I am already overloaded. I cannot do this. And the helper quit the job. So that means that's the breaking point. Beyond 9 tables, helper couldn't manage. That's the breaking point. So 9 tables also, the helper managed with some performance degradation, means in terms of delivering the food, time taken to deliver the food increased, right? So that means in our software applications also, if you if you keep on increasing the number of users, at some point of time, the application will break. Okay, it will not work for sure. When it will break, we don't know. But when you keep on increasing the users, it might break. Okay, and if you test to find that breaking point, okay, that is also one kind of scenario wherein a client will reach out to you and say, hey, can you increase the number of users and find out that breaking point for me? So that will give a clear picture to the client, like how many users max that application can support. Okay. So stress test is also a kind of test wherein we increase the user volume than the load test, okay, to some extent until it breaks. So for example, if load test was executed with, let's say, 500 users, okay, then stress test can be with executed with, let's say, 700, 900, 1100, anything. Like, you can keep on increasing the users. You can until it breaks. We can try like this. So here also, we run the stress test for 1 hour, okay, steady state, and we also find the bottlenecks like high response times, errors, CPU utilization, memory utilization, etc. There are various metrics that we generally monitor, okay, that we will discuss in detail during our analysis session. So this is another type of test which we will run after the load test, basically. Okay. So before load test, we will not run this stress test. If load test itself is failing, okay, why will we run stress test? So this data, 500 users, client is giving to us directly or indirectly, right? So from where client is getting these numbers? Can anyone tell me any inputs from where client might be getting these numbers?
Like a NFR document, like he will provide us
But
NFR
but
document.
someone has to fill that NFR document with these numbers, right? So who is giving that 500?
BA, business analyst.
Um, yeah, kind of, but okay, yeah, good thing. But the thing is, they will also have some source from where they get these numbers. Okay.
Dynatrace.
Yeah, so they can go and use some data analytical tools like Splunk and all. We will discuss those points in detail in the next session. Okay. But just one point that I wanted to add, that this number will be given by client or the client's team, okay, based on some source. So what is that source? What are the different scenarios we have? Okay, how do we get all these numbers? What are the different tools available? We'll discuss in the next session. So we have the load test, okay, and then we have the stress test. Yeah, breaks means fails, correct. Correct. Yeah. Breaks. When I say until it breaks, that means until it fails. Breaks in sense until server crashes. Okay. Until the application crashes. I not write server because we haven't discussed what is server yet. So tomorrow we'll discuss what is server, what is web server, what is application server, what is database server. So all those important terms we will discuss tomorrow, which we will use in our day-to-day sessions. Okay, and in projects also we use those terms on day-to-day basis. So this is about stress test. Then we have, if you don't have any questions, let's discuss endurance test. Endurance or soak or duration. So meaning is same. So it can be endurance test or soak test or duration test. Meaning is same. Okay. Now,
Yeah, hi Kaushik, sorry to interrupt you.
yeah.
So when we are doing the stress test, you mentioned 700, 900, 1100. So
Mhm.
what is the approach? How we will increase the user? So you will explain further class or what?
Yes, yes. We will. This is just a high level information for us to understand that there are different types of tests. So we will create these kind of scenarios in our tool practically, right? So, so I will tell you what are the different options we have to increase the users. So, so we have to discuss with the application team, and we can tell our approach that, hey, this is how we are increasing the users. Please let us know. Please let us know if you have any concerns. So if they say, hey, we are okay with that, then okay, we'll start with 500, then increase to 700 or 1000, and then go for 1200, something like that. It doesn't mean that it need not be something like this. So first you run a test with 500, then you run a test with 700, then you run a test with 900. It can be like that, but it can be other way also. For example, in a 1 hour load test, first 15 minutes I will run with 700. Next 15 minutes I'll run with 900. Next 15 minutes I'll run with 1100. Next 15 minutes I'll run with 1300, like that. So you can schedule your scenario in such a way that you increase your users as per the requirement. Okay. So we don't know where it breaks also, right? So we just try to run, okay, and increase the users and run and see. And when you apply a lot of stress on the application, how it is responding. Okay. Whatever the response times we got in load test, are we getting the similar kind of response times in the stress test also? For example, here you got some response times like on an average, I'm telling. Let's say uh, 2.5 seconds is what you got on an average. Okay, let's say. So in stress test also, you need to get similar response times because because you are adding users, that doesn't mean that the performance should degrade, right? So even in the stress test, you should get similar response times, okay? Plus or minus little bit. But it's not like in load test you are getting to you click a link anywhere on the UI or you click a button. Okay, if it's taking 2.5 seconds to go to next page in the load test, in the stress test also it should be somewhat similar, like close to 2 to 3 seconds, something like that. It cannot be like 4 seconds or 5 seconds just because we have increased our users. Okay. So we will discuss those combinations on how to increase the users when we do practical sessions. Um, okay. Any other questions?
Like if the
Okay.
load test fails, we'll not go to stress test, right?
Yeah, obviously, we generally don't go and run other types of tests because load test itself is the first type of test mostly that we'll run, right? And if it fails, there is no point in increasing the users. So if a load test fails with 500 users, then what is the point of running with 700 or 900 users? Right? That's the reason we try to run
Okay.
we try to run multiple cycles of load test, like 2 or 3 cycles of load test, and capture the best results. It's not like in every project, right? We run these load tests, right? We 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 run for 2 or 3 cycles at least. Okay, it's not like we run once and we stop. We run twice. Even if the first test is successful, we run it for the second time. Okay, just to make sure the results are consistent. So today you're running the first cycle of load test. It was successful, good response times, everything is good. After 3 days, I want to run it again, or after 2 days, I want to run it again. Okay, so that I want to see the consistency in terms of the results that we are getting. Okay, so that's about load test and stress test.
Okay, and directly we can't go to stress test, right? Without a
Um,
test.
we cannot go. See, again, the decision is all clients or the application teams. But again, as I said, mostly we will run load test first, and then if it's successful, then only we'll go for stress test.
Okay.
If you want to directly go for stress test, no one is stopping us. Okay, for sure, no one is stopping us. However, it's a client call. Okay, it's a client or application team call. If they want us to stress it directly, stress it. Okay, no worries. So in that case, you try to run for 2 hours. Okay, I mean, that's the approach I follow. If client is asking me to run the stress test directly instead of load test, I try to run it for 2 hours. Like first 30 minutes, I will run with some 500 users. And next 30 minutes, I'll run with like 800. Next 30 minutes, I'll run with like, 1200, something like that. So I'll increase the users like that. So in that way, I'll be applying the stress and see, how the application is performing, whether performance improved or degraded when compared to the load test results is what we will see.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So there was one project which I supported. It's just a microservice project, web services one. So their task was to their task was to generally in 1 hour, the volume, the number of hits for that service call. Okay, the number of hits for that service call for 1 hour is 5 million. Okay, so when I run a stress test, what did I do? I did not increase the users or anything. Rather, I increased. I mean, basically, instead of running it for 1 hour, I reduced something called think time, and increased little bit of users and applied the stress. And in 15 minutes only, we used to run for like 4 million. Okay, 4 million records must be saved in database in just 15 minutes. Okay, so those kind of applications are also there in the market. Okay, so you have some UI applications, you have some web service applications. So it all depends on type of application. That's the reason we are trying to understand different types of applications, right? So I will tell you, see, whatever the applications that I supported, right? So different combinations I will take as an examples. I will explain you clearly what was the requirement and how did we do it. Okay, so that you will also gain a lot of information when you move to the real time projects. Okay, so just wait for a few more sessions so that we can have some practical sessions, right? So wherein we can discuss in detail. So then we have that endurance or duration test. This is again one more very, very important type of test. So this particular test is to find out how stable is the application when you run the test for longer duration. So normally load test we will run for 1 hour, right? Steady state, right? But endurance test or soap test or duration test, we run it for like 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, one day like that. So that means even though the test is running for longer duration, the performance should not degrade. The response time should be stable. Okay, so let's say, okay, to find out how stable is the application when we run the test for longer duration. Okay, like for example, 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, one day, etc. Or 2 days also, no problem. Okay, so here our focus is when you run the test for longer duration, how the performance is coming up, like whether the performance is improving or degrading for every few minutes. So what we do is, first 1 hour, first hour, we see the response times, how the response times are coming. Second hour, again we see the same thing. Okay, third hour, same thing. So what exactly we are trying to find out is how the application performed in the first 1 hour, how the application performed in the second 1 hour, how the application performed in the third 1 hour. So let's say on an average, okay, let's take any of the small step like launch or login. Let's say for launching the application in the first 1 hour, on an average, it took 2 seconds. My expectation is in the second hour also it should take more or less 2 seconds only. It cannot take like 4 or 5 or 6 seconds like that. It cannot take like this. This is wrong. Okay. That means how it behaved in the first 1 hour, it should behave in the same way in the second hour also. Similarly, in the third hour also. Okay. When you are running the test for longer duration, the performance should be stable enough. The response time should be stable. It should not drastically increase. Understand? In this type of test, okay, of course, the duration is more. Here we find out all of these. I mean, we monitor all of these. Okay, we monitor and find out. Okay, we monitor and bottlenecks and find out some issues. At the same time, with how many users we have to run this type of test. So some projects, okay, some projects they use same users as load test or same volume as load test. Okay. So here I'm writing in some projects, they will go with same users or volume as load test. In some projects, in some other projects, they will go with 75% of the volume when compared to load test. That means in load test, if you run with, for example, in load test, we run with 500 users, right? Here, 75% means 375 users is what we will use here. Okay. So, I mean, it's not mandatory. In some projects, we use same as load test. If 500 users in load test, 500 users in endurance test or soak test. Okay. In some projects, 500 users in load test, 375 users. That is 75% of the users in the endurance test or soak test. Okay. So, along with these, we also find out something important called memory leaks. I mean, there is a chance that memory leaks, okay, or you might get some out of memory errors in endurance test. More chances of getting. I'm not saying you don't find those kind of errors in other types of tests, but more chances of getting that error is in endurance test. I will explain you why. Because if I have to explain you that why, I need to explain you what is heap memory, what is garbage collection mechanism and all. So we will discuss those things later. But all in all, okay, all in all, so these are the important points for the endurance test. Any questions? So what
Yes.
type of, yeah, go ahead.
So actually, suppose that I am a single person in performance testing and client giving the NFR, and I need to perform. The client just suggested me to go for the endurance test. So how can I decide that I will go for 6 hour, 8 hours, or 12 hour?
Uh, it depends on various things. Mostly on your load generator machine's availability. So, for example, I'll tell you one recent use case. So, in the recent project that I was supporting, so we had like 10 LG machines. Okay, yesterday we discussed, right? What is load? LG is load generator. Okay, we have 10 LG machines. Each LG machine will support some number of virtual users, right? Now these 10 LG machines are allocated to 3 projects. Okay, so and all the projects will or multiple projects. Let's say I don't want to go with number 3, but these 10 LG machines are allocated to multiple projects. So we are not sure which project or which team member will use some of these LG machines for their performance test. Okay. Now, if in your team, let's say there are few team members who wants to run endurance test for one day, if you alone will book, if you alone will use like 7 to 8 machines for one day endurance test, what will other team members do then? If they want to run the load test at the same time or on the same day. So which is not possible, right? So sometimes these kind of use cases also will be the reason for them to run for lesser duration, like 3 hours or 5 hours. Okay. Now, on an average, as per the standard, we generally run for 5 to 8 hours. It's a normal standard. Okay. You can run for 5 to 8 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever you want, you can run. So one day is very rare. Okay, because you can, if you run for one day, right, you cannot continuously monitor. You need to have multiple resources in different locations, monitoring the application and all that stuff, right? So 8 hours is good thing. 5 to 8 hours is what we generally suggest and prefer to use for endurance test, unless there is a specific requirement to run for longer duration like one day, which I haven't executed in the recent times for sure. In the past few years, I mean, at least from my side, what I worked on various applications, and whenever executed one day, we executed for 5 to 8 hours most of the times, and 3 hours for few applications. Again, as I said, depending on the availability of the LG machines and all that stuff, and also depending on the client inputs and all that stuff. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, but I was the part of the 24 hours also. I was the part of the 8 hours, and now I am going for the 6 hours only in based on the application to application. So just I want to understand who will decide and how can we decide if client suggested me for that. Because in my previous project, I went for the 24 hours endurance test to find out, as you mentioned, to find out the memory leakage out of memory. So this is the only reason we go for the longer duration.
Yeah, that's the only reason to find out if there are any memory leaks. And also, as I said, this one, the application should behave, you know, equally, or the performance should not degrade. As the time progresses, the performance should not degrade. So getting memory leaks issue, out of memory errors is one aspect. You should not see the performance degradation is another aspect.
Yeah, but suppose I have to deadline to complete my endurance test as by EOD. Okay, so that is my always confusion that I will go for the 8 hours. Suppose that I went for the 8 hours. Okay, my day is over and I cannot get the memory leakage. So should we know
See,
that? Okay, that
yeah, so normally what every performance tester will do is, when they run an endurance test, right? It can be for 5 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours, whatever it is. They send out an email to client with all the observations and concerns. Okay. And if that endurance test is successful, if it's a fail, it's a different criteria, if different thing. You have to run it again at any sort again, once the issues are fixed, you have to run it again. If there are no issues, if you are good, then you will go ahead and inform the client that, hey, we have run this test for 5 to 8 hours. So do you want us to run for few more hours, or do you want us to run it for the same time, one more time, just to check the consistency? So we alone will not take the decision. We discuss with application team, we discuss with client. Okay. we discuss and then we decide. Sometimes it also depends on the timelines. Like you said, you don't have timelines. Mostly, let's say they have given 1 week to complete the performance test. Entire performance testing task you need to complete in 1 week, let's say. So in that 1 week only, you run load test, you need to run endurance test and all. You need to run at least 2 cycles of load test. So you need to have some time, right? So if you have good amount of time, then you can plan. You can plan for 1 day test also, no problem. Because that's out of curiosity, you want to know how it works for 24 hours, you can run, no worries. But generally we take the call by taking the inputs from the application team, mostly the dev leads and all, and the client and all, if they are part of it, client manager and all that stuff. So
Yes,
those guys also.
the solution architect only provide these details and all.
Yeah, it depends from project to project again. Sometimes solution architect is never part of the results review or the timelines and all that stuff. They might be, because solution architect will be busy in multiple projects. So yeah, as I said, it depends on project to project. But anyways, we have to discuss with our application teams. When I say application team, I mean all the stakeholders, like business analyst, developers, managers, everyone. Even if there are any performance leads or managers from our team also, we have to contact them and inform them this is how it is, so is it good to close or should we run another test? We can take inputs, no problem. But there are multiple factors, like you need to have load generator machines, you need to have time, okay, you need to have the environment availability, you need to have proper test data available for running the performance test. Some of the applications have a huge dependency on the test data, and it takes a lot of time to create the test data. Okay. So that is also one of the challenges. So considering all these factors, performance tester will take a call. So to run or not to run, or take opinion or inputs from the application team.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one is scalability test. So this type of test we generally run based on clients' future assumptions or predictions. Okay. So load test, let's say, load test we ran with 500 users. Now client said their business might grow, by 100% in next 6 months. Okay, or next 1 year, whatever it is. So based on the client input, something like this. If client says their business or users might increase in next 6 months by 100% or 200%, then we take that input and run the scalability test with the increased number of users. What percentage of increase depends on the client's future prediction in terms of growth. Okay, so client or business analyst or product owners or business teams are the best persons to give input for this type of test. I'll tell you one example. In 2020, so I was supporting one of the banking application. So we all know, right? In the month of March or March ending or April, we had the pandemic started, right? So our team was like 8 to 10 performance testers. We were supporting around 25 applications, 25 to 30 applications. So in the month of March ending, I think, or April 1st, or I think in the month of April, somewhere around that time. So client scheduled a meeting with all the team members, performance testers, and mentioned that due to the pandemic, users are not going to banks directly to make some transactions, okay? or whatever it is. But users are more interested. Users are more interested in using their online applications. Okay, so in this case, client mentioned that due to increase in demand for the online applications, our number of users might increase, okay, up to 400% in the next 3 months. That's the input given by client. Then what did we do? So let's say the load test we already completed it. We already completed load test with 500 users. Now client mentioned that due to the pandemic, the users accessing their online applications will increase up to 400%. Now, can you tell me the approach, what we have to do now as a performance tester? Any input, any idea?
Can we increase the users and test it the application?
Yeah, we have to increase the users. So now we are running a load test. Okay, load test in sense like the 100% load test. Okay, with the exact volume what we have run. That is 500 users. So what is the increase that we have to do here as per the client, whatever I mentioned? Client said the users might go up to 400% in the next 3 months. So what should I do now? I already ran a 100% load test with 500 users. So up to 400% is what client mentioned. So 400% means up to 2000 users. Yes or no? So should I run this test directly? Is it the right approach?
No.
No. If you run at a 400% load test with 2000 users, okay? So if client, let's say if the test is failure, okay? If the test is failure because our application is not able to withstand the 2000 users load. Now immediately client will ask you, will it support at least 1000 or will it support at least 1500 users? Then we don't have answer, right? That's the reason immediately we will run a 200% load test with 1000 users. If this is successful, then we run a 300% load test with 1500 users. If this is also successful, then we run a 400% load test with 2000 users. Now, for those 25 or 30 applications, when we ran this sequence, okay, they gave us like one and a half month time to do it as soon as possible, basically. So there was no timeline, but basically they said as soon as possible. So when we ran the test, because we divided the applications, each performance tester got like 3 to 4 applications like that, depending on the complexity of the application. And some applications were able to withstand the 2000 users load. Some applications were crashing at 1500, that is 300%. At 300% load, that is 1500 users, the applications were crashing. Like you see, like CPU utilization reaching 90-95%. You see application slowness, memory reaching 100% for some applications, right? So we gave a list to client at how many applications were able to withstand 2000 users, how many applications were able to withstand 1500 users, and so on. Then client immediately took the list of applications which are not able to withstand the load. They immediately increased the infrastructure, okay, capacity. Like they increased the memory and the CPU cores of those application servers so that those applications will also handle the load. That's the immediate fix that they can give. Okay, that's the immediate fix that they can give. So this scalability test is basically used to run to check the scalability of the application. How scalable is your application with the increase in the number of users? Okay, this test we run based on client inputs on their business growth. Most of the times, when you run the scalability test, we don't run stress test. When you run stress test, we don't run scalability test, because if you are increasing the load, you are increasing the users in the stress test. That is also kind of verifying the application's capability to withstand the load or not, right? So either that or this. Specifically, we don't target both of these in the same application. Okay. No, if someone is asking you, hey, you are from performance team, right? Can you suggest us what type of tests we have to run? So immediately you have to go and you have to remember these points. Performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability. For speed, you run load test. For stability, you run endurance test or soak test. For scalability, you run the scalability test. So these three types of tests is what you have to suggest, and based on their reply, you can decide if you want to run other types of tests as well. Okay, and if and if client knows about performance testing, obviously client will only suggest what type of test they want us to run. Okay, that is a straightforward. We don't have to worry. Whatever they mention, we'll run that. That is the scalability test. Now
So you
let's
mentioned that scalability testing is a kind of a stress test. So what is the difference between both of them?
here client will specifically mention about the future growth, and client will see whether their applications are good enough, scalable or not. Like their applications currently have like 16 GB RAM. Can they be scaled up to 32 GB? Yes or no? So they will see whether their infrastructure is capable enough of scaling up or not. Nowadays, most of us are using cloud applications, right? So in cloud, mostly it is auto scaling. So if let's say 2 or 3 instances are there, if there is a huge amount of load, automatically it will scale up one more, depending on the requirement, depending on the configuration. Okay. If you are using any Kubernetes kind of application, you can increase one more pod, you can add one more pod, you can increase one more pod, depending on it. So it's about more of scalability side. Okay. But that's why I'm saying. So if you run stress test, right, it will also give a clear indication of how many users it can support max. At the same time, scalability test will also give such similar kind of information, but client will clearly tell us what is the growth and what kind of growth is being expected in the next few months or 1 year. Based on that, we have to run that particular type of test. Okay. So in most of the projects, whatever we have run, if there is no input from client on the scalability test, we run these two. Sorry, this one, 200%. So total we'll run 3 types of tests. One is load test, then endurance test, then scalability test with 200% load. That is what we do in most of the projects. Okay. So, I mean, when we go to the practice sessions and in the upcoming sessions, I will give you different numbers and different kind of applications, okay, that I have worked with, and how one application is different from other one. Okay. So you'll get a lot of clarity, like, oh, these are the different type of applications, and oh, this is how we have run. Okay, okay. So same or similar kind of um, you know a requirement will be there for you guys also. Because why am I saying confidently is, see, now even I also keep moving up and supporting different kinds of applications, right, for performance testing. I generally don't think much for any new application also. Whatever the new application is there, it will be, the requirement will be more or less to the application which I have already supported. So same kind of approach I will follow, and I will continue and complete the work. So from my perspective, I will try to provide all that information, different kinds of application, different approaches, okay, different types of test data preparations, okay, all that stuff. So you will also, you can also make, going forward, you can also make a note of all these points and use it in your real-time projects. This failover test is there, right? We will have to discuss this tomorrow, because if to discuss this failover test, you have to understand what is a server, what is application server, what is web server, what is database server. So all these terms we have to understand. Okay. So tomorrow, first thing what we will do is we will discuss all those terms. We'll see what kind of architecture we will have. We'll understand what is a protocol, what is database server, web server, app server, and then we will discuss what is failover testing, how we will do failover testing, why is it important, okay, in the recent past. This one we'll see tomorrow. Now let's come back to this and quickly complete this volume test and spike test. So volume test is same as load test. Okay. Now again, I'm saying it as same as load test. Then why is it different? How is it different? Why it is called volume test? So similar to load test, except that huge amount of data will be inserted into database before the test. So, for example, for load test, you have, let's say, 100K or 1 lakh records in database. Okay. For volume test, we increase the data like to 200K or 400K like that. Let's say increase the data, for example, 400K or 4 lakhs, let's say, in database. Okay, and then run the test. So same load test scenario only we will run. There is no second thought about it. Same 500 users, same thing we will run. Okay, only thing will be the amount of data that you have in the database for your application will be huge. Why? Because when there is a huge amount of data in the database, how your application is responding. See, for example, I have a search window. Okay. In that search window, I'm searching for my name Krushik. So let's say in the database, I have 1 lakh names, 1 lakh names in one table. Now, when I search with name Krushik, it will go and search those 100K. If it is there, it will fetch the record for me. Okay. Now, what if there are 400K or 4 lakh records? That means it will need more time. It will need more time, or basically it needs it has to go through those 400K records or 4 lakh records to search the data and fetch the data for you. So when there is a huge amount of data in the database, how much time it is taking to fetch the data from the database? Is there any SQL performance issues? SQL means SQL performance issues. Okay. So those kind of database performance issues can be found, okay, in this volume test. Okay. So basically this type of test will be executed more in e-commerce kind of applications or warehouse management system kind of applications, where they have a huge amount of data in the database and they try to run their load test kind of scenarios. Okay. So any questions in this? So performance issues always need not be from the application server or the UI, right? Sometimes it can be from the database side also. And that too, especially if you have a huge amount of data in the database. Simple. You open your phone, you open photos, or go to camera and open photos, scroll down quickly. If you have less amount of photos, the photos list will keep on coming quickly and you will get to see all the photos without any slowness. But what if you have 5 GB or 10 GB of photos itself in your phone? Or let's say some 200 GB of photos in your phone. What if you have 200 GB photos in your phone? If you keep on scrolling up, will the photos load quickly or slowly? Why? Because you have a lot of data in your phone and your phone is not able to process it quickly because of huge amount of data. So that's the reason, keeping that kind of slowness, okay, in mind, we intentionally add huge amount of data in the database with the help of the DBA team. Okay. I know one of our participant currently is from DBA background as well. Okay. He might have a good idea about what I'm saying now. Okay. So as a performance tester, we we work with DBA team and the development team. We create huge amount of data in the database and then go for the load test and see if there is any performance issues. Okay. So that is also very, very important thing. So this is rarely used, but mostly used in e-commerce and warehouse management system applications. Then I'm skipping the sixth one because we'll discuss tomorrow. I'm going to seventh one, that is spike test. Spike test is nothing but you have to, here we are focusing more on the application when there is a sudden increase or decrease. Okay, when there's a sudden spike or increase in decrease in terms of number of users or the volume. Okay, analyze the performance when there is a sudden spike. Okay, it could be increase or decrease. Okay, so it will be something like this. You suddenly increase the users. Okay, then suddenly decrease the users. You don't have a specific pattern. In the earlier diagram, I told user, again user, a step-by-step approach. But here, this is a normal approach. But here in the spike test, we don't have any step-up approach. We directly spike the number of users and we see whether it is impacting the application performance, whether our application is able to withstand the sudden spike or not. Okay. So these are the important types of performance tests that we generally perform in most of the performance testing projects. So only thing pending is this one failover test, for which we need some time to understand server, app servers, database servers and all. And then I'll explain you the approach that we need to follow to run the failover test. Okay. And why is it important in the recent past? Any questions?
So this all types of performance test you will show in regular session, right? How to achieve spike and
Yeah. So we will run a load test for 1 hour. The other types of tests, we will configure it in the tool, and we will just start and we will wait for 5-10 minutes and we will stop because we cannot wait for 5 hours, 3 hours like that, right? So each and every type of scenario, each and every type of test we will create. We'll create. I'll tell you how. See, when I say create, I'll tell you how to configure that scenario, how to create the scenario in the tool. It's just that you need to click on run button. Okay, remaining everything is important and which we will cover. But load test, we will wait, we will monitor, we will see how the test is running. During test execution, what are the different metrics that we have to analyze is also what we'll discuss. And after the test also, we'll use some APM tools like Dynatrace and all to fetch some additional metrics and see what are our observations and concerns. So we will run a full 1 hour load test in the course, but remaining scenarios, we will create those scenarios in the tool. We will kickstart the test and we'll stop in 5-10 minutes because we will have to discuss other things also, right? Yeah. But I will tell you how to run each and every type of scenario. It's a very small configuration change in the tool. It's not like completely new. For example, for endurance test, we just increase the time. For scalability test, we just increase the users, right? So for volume test, it is same as load test. Only thing we are adding data in the database. Okay. So something like that. Fail load test is also easy only. I mean, only thing is you need to work with developer or some admin who has access to bring down the servers. So that's the only dependency for the failover test. Remaining everything is good. Okay. So just I'll send you these notes. You can keep it handy.
Yeah, Kumar, you will show us the every test, right? How to set up those, how to increase the users. You will show
Yeah,
us,
yeah,
right? Every
yes. Because we have to understand what each type of test is, right? So we have to create that scenario practically in the tool. Then only we'll understand what is the difference between each type of test.
Okay, what is the course duration? How
It
many
will be
days?
like 35 to 40 sessions every Monday to Friday, daily morning 8 to 9 a.m.
Okay.
Okay. Um, yeah, I
As I'm
mean,
a new to suppose a beginner of this performance testing and the load runner, how
mhm.
can we know that what are the previous version and current version in load runner?
I will explain you in our upcoming sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, I will cover that in the upcoming sessions. Yeah. And also, I mean, yesterday and today I had some throat infection, had some issues. But in our upcoming sessions, it will be more interactive and more question answers kind of sessions. So unfortunately, I couldn't cancel it because it's just a starting of the batch, so I couldn't cancel it in spite of some throat infection. So let's make it more interactive from the next session. Hopefully, it will be cleared up by tomorrow.
Kumar, are you still working, Kumar? On performance?
Yeah.
Okay, your full name?
Krushik.
Okay.
So one more, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, can we done this